I remember the first time I truly understood defeat. Not the physical kind. I had experienced that before. But the deeper kind that lives in your mind long after your body is healed. I was 17, standing across from a man twice my size, my master watching silently from the corner. Expected me to lose. And for a moment, just a moment, so did I. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Not because he was better, faster, or stronger, but because, in that single instant of doubt, I had already defeated myself. My body was just catching up to what my mind had already decided. The world sees victory and defeat as external events, measurements on a scoreboard, numbers in a ledger. But I'm here to tell you, they are nothing but states of mind. They exist first in your thoughts before they ever manifest in reality. Take a moment right now, close your eyes, feel the rhythm of your own breathing. Now ask yourself, how many battles have you lost before you've even begun fighting? How many dreams have withered not because they were impossible, but because you decided they were? Listen closely, because what I'm about to share isn't found in any training manual. It can't be taught in any school. It is the distilled wisdom of a lifetime spent fighting not just opponents, but the most dangerous enemy of all, the limitations of my own mind. I promise you this, by the time we finish, you will never see defeat the same way again. You will recognize it not as something that happens to you, but as something you either accept or reject. And in that recognition lies a power most people will never discover. Every morning when I wake, before my feet touch the floor, I make a decision about what kind of day it will be. Not what kind of day I hope it will be, but what kind of day it will be. This distinction may seem small, but it contains the entire secret of self-mastery. Most people enter each day like someone stepping into a river, letting the current decide where they go. They react to circumstances. They respond to obstacles. They adapt to challenges. But they never direct the flow. They never command the current. I spent years studying the mechanics of combat. The precise angle of a punch, the perfect balance of a kick, the exact timing of a counterstrike. Yet none of these technical skills matter if your mind has already surrendered. All the training in the world means nothing if you've mentally accepted defeat before the first move is made. Let me share something I discovered during thousands of hours of training that transformed not just my fighting, but my entire approach to life. I call it the 3 minds principle, and once you understand it, you'll never experience defeat the same way again. The first mind is the reactive mind. This is where most people live their entire lives. It sees obstacles as barriers. It interprets challenges as threats. It experiences change as disruption. The reactive mind is always playing defense, always responding, always trying to survive. I remember training a student who had all the physical gifts in the world, strength, speed, coordination, yet he lost every sparring match. During one particularly frustrating session, I stopped him and asked, "What are you thinking right now?" You see the problem? His entire mental framework was built around reacting. He had positioned himself as the object, not the subject, of the fight. He had made himself the recipient of action, the initiator. In his mind, he was already following, not leading. Second mind is the responsive mind. This is a step up from reactivity. The responsive mind doesn't just react, it responds with purpose. It has plans, techniques, and strategies. It sees obstacles not just as barriers, but as challenges to overcome. This mind doesn't merely survive, it seeks to win. Most accomplished people operate from the responsive mind. They have goals. They develop skills. They create strategies to achieve their objectives. The responsive mind is focused on victory, and that's certainly better than being focused on mere survival. But there's a limitation here too. The responsive mind is still fundamentally tied to external circumstances. It's still operating within the framework of stimulus and response. It's more sophisticated than the reactive mind, but it's still not the source of true power. I operated from the responsive mind for many years, constantly refining my techniques, developing new approaches, creating innovative training methods. I became very good, but I hadn't yet reached the state of true mastery that I knew was possible. The creative mind doesn't react or respond, it creates. It doesn't see what is, it sees what could be. It doesn't work within limitations. It reimagines the boundaries. The creative mind doesn't play the game better. It changes the game entirely. When you operate from the creative mind, defeat becomes impossible because you're no longer playing by external rules or standards. You've moved beyond the duality of victory and defeat into a space of pure creation and expression. This is what I meant when I said, send me water, my friend. Water doesn't try to overcome obstacles, it simply flows around them. Water doesn't fight against barriers, it patiently transforms them. Water doesn't strategize, it simply expresses its nature under all conditions. The creative mind doesn't ask, how can I win this fight? It asks, what am I creating through this encounter? It doesn't ask, how can I avoid defeat? It asks, how can I express my truest nature in this moment? When I finally understood this principle, everything changed. I no longer entered combat with a strategy for victory. I entered with a commitment to complete self-expression, and paradoxically, that's when I became truly undefeatable. Not because I won every match, but because I transcended the very concept of defeat. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds philosophical, but how does it apply to my daily challenges? How does it help me when I've been laid off? When my business is failing? When my relationship is ending? One night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in my empty studio. Silence was deafening. The weight of potential failure pressed down on me like a physical force. In that moment, I had a choice. I could accept the narrative of defeat that circumstances seemed to be writing, or I could create a different story entirely. This shift from reacting to creating changed everything. I realized I wasn't just fighting to keep a martial arts school open. I was creating a new paradigm of combat. I wasn't just trying to retain students. I was expressing a philosophy that could transform lives. The next day, I completely reimagined my approach. Instead of defending traditional methods, I began openly questioning them. Instead of trying to fit into established paradigms, I created something entirely new. I stopped trying to win within the existing game and created a different game altogether. The result wasn't just survival, it was revolution. Jeet Kune Do wasn't born from victory, it was born from what seemed like defeat. But because I refused to accept the mental state of defeat, I transformed a crisis into creation. This is the power available to you right now. Whatever challenge you're facing, whatever obstacle seems insurmountable, you have the ability to shift from reactive thinking to creative thinking. You have the power to ask not, how do I overcome this, but what am I creating through this? First, the morning definition ritual. Each morning, before engaging with the world, define exactly what victory means to you that day. Not what society calls success, not what others expect of you, but what represents true victory according to your deepest values. When you clearly define victory on your own terms, you reclaim the power to determine whether you've been defeated. I used to begin each day by visualizing not just successful techniques, but the exact feeling of expressing my true nature through movement. I defined victory not as winning a match, but as achieving complete authenticity in my expression. This definition freed me from external judgments and anchored my sense of achievement in factors I could control. Second, the pattern interruption practice. Throughout your day, notice when you slip into reactive thinking. You'll recognize it by the thoughts that arise. Then this always happens to me. Sani can't believe this obstacle appeared. Why am I so unlucky? When you catch these thoughts, interrupt them immediately with a creative question. What can I create from this situation? How can I use this to express my truest self? I remember sparring with a much larger opponent who kept using his weight advantage to corner me. Initially, I felt frustration, a reactive response. I caught myself and immediately shifted. How can I express fluidity against solid force? This creative question led me to develop techniques that used the opponent's weight against him, techniques that later became foundational to my entire system. Third, the redefinition discipline. At the end of each day, review your experiences not in terms of wins and losses, but in terms of creation and expression. Ask yourself, when did I create most powerfully today? When did I express my true nature most authentically? This practice gradually reprograms your mind to value creation over competition, expression over victory. After filming particularly difficult scenes, I wouldn't assess whether they were good or bad by conventional standards. Instead, I asked, Did I express truth through that performance? Did I create something authentic? This redefinition transformed even the most challenging days into opportunities for growth rather than experiences of defeat. Fourth, the creative visualization method. Unlike traditional visualization, which focuses on seeing yourself achieving specific outcomes, creative visualization involves imagining yourself expressing your true nature regardless of external circumstances. Before entering any challenging situation, take a moment to visualize not just what you'll do, but who you'll be in that moment. Before important demonstrations, I wouldn't visualize perfect techniques. I would visualize being perfectly present, perfectly authentic, perfectly expressive, regardless of what techniques emerged. This freed me from the fear of mistakes and allowed natural excellence to flow without constraint. These 4 practices aren't just techniques, they're pathways to a fundamentally different relationship with the concept of defeat. They transfer power from external circumstances to internal choices. They move you from the position of being defeated to the position of deciding what defeat even means. But I must warn you, this path is not easy. Our minds are conditioned through years, decades of conventional thinking. The pull of reactive and responsive thinking is strong. The habit of defining defeat in external terms is deeply ingrained. I remember the resistance I felt when first attempting to redefine victory and defeat on my own terms. Society's definitions are powerful. Other people's expectations are persuasive. The scoreboard seems so objective, so real. Society may say you're defeated when you lose the job, lose the relationship, lose the competition. But are you defeated? Or are you simply experiencing a moment of transition, a gateway to creation, an opportunity for expression? The answer depends not on what happens to you, but on which mind you choose to employ. The reactive mind that makes you a victim of circumstances, the responsive mind that makes you a player in the game, or the creative mind that makes you the author of your experience. In 1971, I suffered a serious back injury that left me immobilized for months. Doctors told me I might never practice martial arts again. By every conventional definition, this was defeat. A devastating blow to someone whose identity was built around physical prowess and martial excellence. For the first few weeks, I operated from the reactive mind. I felt victimized by fate. I questioned why this had happened to me. I dwelled on all I had lost. This mental state transformed physical pain into suffering and turned a temporary condition into an existential crisis. As I began to heal, I shifted to the responsive mind. I developed strategies for recovery. I researched treatments. I created rehabilitation exercises. I fought against the limitation with everything I had. This was better than reactivity, but it was still exhausting. Every day felt like a battle against reality rather than an acceptance of it. Then one afternoon, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I asked myself a different question. What am I creating through this experience? Not, how do I overcome this? What am I creating through this? This shift changed everything. I realized I wasn't just recovering from an injury, I was developing a deeper understanding of the relationship between mind and body. I wasn't just rehabilitating muscles, I was cultivating patience. I wasn't just fighting against limitation, I was learning to express myself, even within constraints. I began using the immobility of my body as an opportunity to mobilize my mind. I read philosophy, I wrote extensively, I refined the theoretical foundations of my martial art. I deepened my practice of meditation. I strengthened relationships with those caring for me. By the time my body healed, my approach to martial arts had been transformed. What began as seeming defeat had become the foundation for my greatest innovations. The injury hadn't defeated me. It had revealed new dimensions of my capacity for expression. This is the opportunity before you right now. Whatever challenge you're facing, whether it's professional, personal, physical, or psychological, you have the power to ask, what am I creating through this experience? When you ask this question sincerely, you activate the creative mind. You shift from being the object of experience to being the subject. You move from being defeated, being the creator of meaning. Transform from victim to artist. This is not positive thinking or empty affirmation. This is not denying reality or suppressing emotion. This is the profound recognition that while you may not control all that happens to you, you always control the mind with which you meet what happens. The world will always present obstacles. Others will always achieve what you haven't. Resources will always be limited. Mistakes will always be made. But defeat is optional. Defeat is a state of mind that you either accept or reject. I've trained thousands of students over the years, and I've noticed something remarkable. Two people can experience exactly the same setback, yet one emerges stronger while the other remains diminished. The difference is never in the severity of the setback. The difference is always in the mind that meets the setback. Some people instinctively ask, why did this happen to me? Others naturally ask, what can I create from this? The first question leads to victimhood. The second leads to authorship. The first accepts defeat. The second transcends it entirely. I want you to try something right now. Think of a current difficulty in your life, something that feels like defeat or potential defeat. It might be a professional setback, a personal rejection, a financial struggle, or a physical limitation. Got it? Good. Now notice your default thinking about this situation. Are you asking reactive questions like, why is this happening? Or how can I make this stop? Are you asking responsive questions like, how can I solve this? Or what strategies might work? These are natural, but they keep you operating within the conventional framework of defeat. Instead, try asking creative questions. What might I be learning through this that I couldn't learn any other way? How might this situation be revealing strengths I didn't know I had? What new possibilities might this apparent setback be opening that weren't visible before? How can this challenge help me express aspects of myself have been dormant? Feel the difference? The first set of questions accepts the reality of defeat and tries to escape it. The second set transcends the very concept of defeat by focusing on creation rather than avoidance, expression rather than protection. But I want to be clear about something. This path is not about becoming invincible in the conventional sense. It's not about winning every time by external standards. It's about transcending the tyranny of external standards altogether. It's about recognizing that true victory has never been about what happens outside you, but about what happens within you. The greatest fighters I've known weren't those who never lost a match. They were those who never lost themselves. The most successful people I've met weren't those who never experienced setbacks. They were those who never surrendered their creative power to circumstances. This is the invitation before you now, to become not a person who never fails, but a person who is never defeated by failure, not someone who avoids all losses, but someone who extracts creation from every loss, not an individual who escapes all limitations, but one who expresses their true nature even within limitations. The path begins with a choice, a decision about which mind you'll employ when facing life's challenges. Will you react, thinking primarily about what has happened to you? Will you respond, focusing mainly on how to overcome what has happened? Or will you create, concentrating on what you're expressing and bringing into being through what has happened? I want to leave you with a practice that has transformed my relationship with defeat. A practice so simple you can begin it today, yet so profound it can restructure your entire approach. Challenges. This might be a quality like patience, courage, or compassion. It might be a way of being like presence, authenticity, or gratitude. It might be a form of contribution like service, leadership, or encouragement. Whatever you choose, make this creation your primary focus. Let it be the standard by which you measure your day's success. When unexpected obstacles arise, as they invariably will, ask yourself not, how does this affect my plans, but how can I express my commitment to creating X through this unexpected situation? I've practiced this commitment throughout my life's most challenging moments. When facing cultural barriers in Hollywood, I committed to creating authenticity rather than acceptance. When confronting resistance to my teaching methods, I committed to creating innovation rather than validation. When dealing with physical limitations, I committed to creating adaptability rather than overcoming. These commitments didn't prevent difficulties, but they transformed my experience of difficulties from potential defeat into creative opportunity. They shifted my attention from what was happening to me to what I was creating through what was happening. This same power is available to you right now. Whatever challenge you're facing, whatever obstacle seems insurmountable, you have the ability to commit to creation rather than fixating on prevention. You have the capacity to focus on expression rather than protection. And in that choice, discover what I discovered through years of training, fighting, and living. Defeat truly is optional. It exists only when you grant it existence. It has power only when you surrender your power. You'll have discovered what the greatest warriors, artists, and innovators throughout history have always known. True victory isn't about defeating external opponents. It's about expressing your authentic nature regardless of external circumstances. And it's available to you right now, in this moment, through a single choice. Will you accept defeat as a reality imposed from outside? Or will you recognize it as a state of mind that you can simply decline to enter? Remember, water doesn't fear the rock. It simply flows around it, gradually transforming it through consistent expression of its nature. Be like water in the face of your challenges and discover the power that comes from refusing to accept defeat as anything more than a temporary state of mind, a state you can transform through the creative power that is your birthright.